animal welfare. All I can say is that every time a big truck drives by with pigs inside of it, I do cry, and they look very sad.
Can you tell me what the Farm Bill is?
Nope. Farm Bill? Yeah, nope.
Animal welfare? Well, I assume that's when an animal family is below the poverty line and receives additional support from the government. So the Farm Bill is the man who has worked on the farm for 80 years?
Tell me, what do you know about Proposition 12 in California?
Oh, nothing.
I know nothing about that. I'm so sorry. Animal welfare, like how they take care of the animals. You know, agricultural and food things.
I don't know what the Farm Bill is.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cat Podcast. My name is Sydney Schnorr and today we are going to be talking to Gracelyn and Cameron about urban farming. And just a little background about urban farming. Urban farming addresses several global food challenges related to food insecurity, sustainability, and climate change. And without digging too deep into the topic, I'll hand it right over to them.
Hi everybody, welcome to Green in the Concrete Jungle. My name is Gracelyn Dalhauser.
And Cameron Williamson.
Today we're going to look at urban farming. So urban farming is the practice of growing, processing, and distributing food in and around urban areas. Unlike traditional rural farming, urban farming utilizes available spaces within cities, some of these being rooftops, vacant lots, and community gardens. These areas grow food and are often used with innovative methods like vertical farming and hydroponics to maximize efficiency. Urban farming addresses several global challenges, including food insecurity, sustainability, and climate change. Urban farming does come with its challenges, though, and can pose significant financial risk. When food is produced locally, the carbon footprint associated with transporting food from rural areas to cities can be reduced. According to the United Nations, nearly 68% of the world's population is projected to live in urban areas by 2050. As cities grow, so do concerns about food security, environmental sustainability, and public health. Urban farming offers practical solutions to these issues, making it a topic well worth discussing. Let's get started. So thanks for joining us today, Clayton. Could you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little about Clayton's farm, your background, and then your dream for this business?
Yeah. So Clayton Mooney, co-founder and chief farmer of Clayton Farms. We build farm plus restaurants and serve the world's freshest salads, wraps, and smoothies. We hope to take over the world one salad at a time.
Amazing. I can tell you it's a really good place to eat. What inspired you specifically to get involved in this urban farming initiative?
So for me, I grew up on a small family farm, very traditional row crops. My family farm is still there today. When I left the family farm, I said never doing anything in agriculture ever again. Never say never. Flash forward to today, I'm an indoor farmer growing year-round with no soil in Iowa. What really drove me to that was seeing how technology can provide a lot of solutions to kind of inefficient industries. And there's a lot of inefficiencies around just agriculture in general. I, growing up, moved from city to city to city. I've lived in Denver and Dublin, Ireland, and bigger cities. And you start to notice the inefficiencies around, local food, vacant spaces. And so that naturally brings you to the opportunity in indoor farming or urban farming. And then starting kind of first and foremost with the technology base, that got me really excited about how to produce better food for more people in the community year round.
That's amazing. So kind of going back to your travel, have you seen different models of agriculture and how food is grown in the different cities or countries that you lived in versus the middle of the Midwest, Iowa?
Yes. Yeah. So here, if you ask the average Iowan what an indoor farm is, they will point to a greenhouse. And I think that's fine. And that's what almost everybody knows as an indoor farm. On the coast, it's definitely different. So you have, over the years, very large companies like on the East Coast, Aero Farms, on the West Coast, Plenty. And they come from communities who are less kind of in the trenches in agriculture. So they're kind of dubbed as the farms of the future, or these vertical farms of the future. Whereas if you ask anybody in San Francisco what an indoor farm is, they'll point to that situation. It will not be a greenhouse. It won't be anything even close to what we would imagine here in Iowa.
That's amazing. I never thought of that. So you mentioned a couple different types of urban farms. Are there specific examples of urban farming initiatives that really have stood out to you? And then could you kind of include some of the work you've done at Clayton's Farm here in Ames?
Yeah, so I think from our opinion is we think that most indoor farms got it wrong by wanting too large of a footprint. So the average indoor farm in the U.S. today is 50,000 square feet. That means you're growing food quite a ways away from consumers and the community. And with that approach, a lot of these larger indoor farms have raised venture capital and have turned around and, in our opinion, built a lot of bells and whistles or robots to run the farm. They don't really have a clear path to making the farm run profitably or sustainably. And that's why a lot of the indoor farms go under before they have a chance to actually truly serve a community and a lot of people. So our approach was, could we start with a smaller footprint? So instead of 50,000 square feet, 1,000 square feet. So in 2017, when we started the company, for the first 3 years focusing on the technology piece, we worked in multiples of 1,000 square feet. Because if we could make that work and find vacant space, which there's a lot more space out there that's 1,000 square feet compared to 50,000 square feet, then we could grow food closer to the consumer. We could focus more on the vertical integration or owning the supply chain. And that's been really, really important for us to be both the farmer and the deliverer. And in now our case, own the supply chain from seed to salad.
That's so cool how you've kind of bridged the gap. Is there any positive impacts that you've seen since kind of coming into the community?
Big time. So today we have a ton of community support. We have almost 3,000 loyalty club members. There's 3,000 out of 60,000 people in Ames. That's a pretty good percentage for us. And those loyalty club members, as they come through about once every 10 days right now, so visiting with us 3 times a month, they are absolutely bought into the idea of supporting a local farming system. A lot of the feedback has been as somebody drives through for the first time, they look at a couple of feet over in the window, they see the lettuce growing, and they start to subconsciously appreciate that because they know that that lettuce is going into their salads. So supporting a local farm, understanding a controlled environment equals no pesticides. That's a big one. And then as far as the community support beyond that goes, we have this initiative we're working on now called Salad University. And that's where we have repurposed our farm space in the Iowa State University Research Park to be more of an urban farming learning environment and campus for researchers, faculty members, students, and community members, because there is this growing demand for people who not only want to know where their food comes from, but they actually want to roll up their sleeves and learn how to grow their own food, which I think that's a pretty exciting kind of journey that we're on.
Yeah, that's so sick. So urban farming kind of brings food locally, like you said. Are there specific ways that you think it addresses food security?
Yeah, so there's more food deserts today than ever before. Growing up, I would have never guessed that. I thought when I left my small rural community, it was a food desert at the time. Flash forward, 20 years, I thought it would have been solved. But instead, what ended up happening was you have a Walmart 25 minutes away, and then you have a Dollar General come into the area. And I think Dollar Generals, in my opinion, put a kind of a stranglehold because of the convenience of it. Mm-hmm. They are not about healthy, fresh food, right? And so flash forward to today, there's more food deserts than ever before, but not only on the rural side, but also on the urban side. So some people are priced out because some urban farming initiatives, there's too high of input costs. Therefore, the prices are too high. So it prices out community members or pockets of the community. At scale, we really want to live and breathe our mission of providing better food to more people. And in order to do that, we need to build a system where, again, it's the farm plus the restaurant. We have partners in place essentially through franchising. And at the end of the day, at the right scale, you can take some of those profits and launch in less profitable areas and make sure that we can live our mission of getting better food to more people at as many possible locations.
Yeah, so when you're convincing your buyers to purchase your food, are there nutritional benefits to the food? And what makes locally grown urban farming produced food better than just what you would find in a supermarket?
Yeah, so if you walk into a supermarket today, all the food sitting in the produce aisle is missing a third or more of its nutrition. it's older than 3 days post-harvest, and that's the why. And it's not the farmer's fault, not the distributor's fault, and not the grocers or supermarket's fault, but because they're segmented, they really can't fix this until teleportation exists. And so by owning the supply chain and actually growing for the local community, you get that full nutrition, but also brings with it full flavor. So one of the most common points of feedback we get on like a weekly basis, we've been open now with the restaurant a little over a year and a half. One of those common points of feedback is, I've never tasted like arugula like that, or I've never tasted romaine like that. What are you doing different? And I said, this is how this food is supposed to taste. It's same day harvest and serving. So you get the full flavor, full nutrition. Whereas if you go and pick up the clamshell of, leafy greens at the grocery store, you get it home, you enjoy one salad. Next time you open up the clamshell, it's kind of slimy. Why is that? Well, the lettuce that was on the shelf is 10 to 11 days into its 14-day shelf life.
Very interesting. So it has a better impact for people eating this locally grown food. When it comes to the environment, how do you see urban farming differing from traditional farming? Could you touch on some benefits, maybe some downsides that you have come across?
Yeah. So I kind of thinking through the pros cons list. Again, coming from a traditional family farm background, I didn't realize until I was older how not all land is created equal. And no farmer can really afford to give the land a rest. So you're always pumping in the extra inputs that you need. And it's continually stripping the land of what is actually needed to run a farming operation sustainably, right? So that's kind of the con side of the traditional side. I think both traditional and urban farming should and always coexist. There's always pros, cons to both. On the urban farming side, 4 or 5 years ago, I would have said the biggest con in starting an indoor farm would be on the lighting and the energy needs. So lights, the grow lights are one of the most expensive pieces of material kind of inputs to launch the farm. Very, very high energy. And so it was not efficient for energy. And then most indoor farms didn't really calculate how expensive the utility costs would be. So that ate into the margins. That's another reason why a lot of indoor farms shut down. But over the last few years, we've watched so many startups in the indoor farm lighting space jump in. And the good news is for farmers is it's kind of a race to the most economical. And so to give you an idea, just over the last 3 years, we've reduced the material costs in our lights by 1/3. And we've also reduced our energy needs by almost 1/3. And so that is being addressed as more and more startups are trying to be as innovative as they can. So that's good. On the pro side, one of my favorite statistics that we're really proud of today is the way we've designed our technology. One, we've open sourced it. So we let all of our patent applications expire. We've open sourced it. So if anyone can learn from our indoor farm technology, the inputs, anything like that, they can. We believe a kind of a rising tide raises all ships. But we have closed loop systems. So our hydroponic systems, whatever the plants are drinking now for the water and nutrients, it's recirculated and they'll drink later. So that allows us for every 1 month we grow food in our hydroponic equipment, we'd save 1 year's worth of water when compared to traditional ag.
Very interesting. I don't know that. That's so cool. Okay, so what can community members do if they would like to get involved in urban farming or kind of become more educated on it? Do you have any action steps for them, specifically in Ames, Iowa, maybe the Midwest, since we're there on?
Yeah. So, best way to learn, in my opinion, is just rolling up your sleeves. And in our South University campus, if anyone wants to reach out, no matter how far away you are, if you can actually get to Ames, we're happy to open up South University to you. You can learn everything about the hydroponic systems, the controlled environment agriculture, seeding, transplanting, harvesting, cleaning of leafy greens, microgreens, vine crops, herbs. So that's the best way to get involved locally. I think we're in a pretty exciting time where there's so many communities, especially like rural town main streets, who they have the buildings. The buildings are sitting empty. People are trying to brainstorm on how to best utilize these buildings. With a little bit of a work and kind of that community effort and that community pride, you could launch your own urban farm in some capacity, or maybe it's even a community garden to kind of as a first step. But I think if you have access to the vacant space and the community behind it, those are two absolute ingredients for success. Another thought that I have is there's a lot of individuals kind of ever since pandemic who are taking Master Gardener online certificate programs. And you get to the end of the program, if you want, from my understanding, if you want the entire certificate, you need to do some volunteering. And so there should be a constant funnel of individuals who have gone through this program who need to volunteer. And I think that's kind of the best opportunity you have. Again, roll up your sleeves, jump into a community garden or your local urban farming initiative.
That's cool. That's amazing. So do you personally grow anything at your own home, or is it just kind of a business on the a business separated from home life?
I try to. So my wife, Michaela, when we first bought our acreage a few years ago, there was this really nice garden they had set up, and she was very excited. There's like already asparagus and a bunch of other things growing. And she asked me how excited I was about it. And I said, at any given day, I see about 500,000 plants that I'm responsible for. So the last thing I want to do is to get home and think about like this garden. But I leaned the other way. So I grew up, family farm. We also had a bunch of horses growing up. So we haven't gotten horses yet, but somehow we ended up adopting 6 goats and 2 alpacas over the last 6 months. And so I love the idea of like a hobby farm homestead, and all the animals are just pets, like not even milking the goats or anything. They just live their best lives.
Yeah, I love it. That's amazing. Cool. Is there anything else you want to share about the future of urban farming, or advice for anyone interested?
If anyone wants to reach out, my personal email is just the letter C at claytonfarms.com. However, we can help from a community standpoint or sharing what's worked and what's not worked for us. We're an open book.
Awesome. Thanks, Clayton. Appreciate having you on today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Could you start by introducing yourself and sharing a bit about your background in agriculture and what led you to your views on urban farming?
Yeah, well, I'm Cory Marth, and I'm from Northern Iowa. I'm a major in accounting and finance, but I grew up on a family farm. My dad grows corn, soybeans, and there's 2 hog confinements as well. So he's raising pigs, and I've had a lot of experience in that sector. So
more of a traditional Iowa family farm.
Yeah.
All right, and then so we'll start with our questions here. What do you see as some of the main challenges in scaling urban farming to a level that could meet the needs of large populations?
Well, urban areas are often densely populated, so that leaves limited space for large-scale farming. The amount of arable land available in cities is also much smaller compared to the rural areas. The amount of land that's needed to produce enough food for large populations could conflict with other critical urban needs, such as housing, infrastructure, and commercial spaces.
Yeah. How sustainable do you think urban farming is financially, especially considering the costs associated with real estate in urban areas?
Well, many cities have zoning laws that restrict agriculture use in certain areas, which increases the financial burden on urban farmers. Securing permits, complying with building codes, adapting spaces for urban farming adds significant costs. Also, urban farming depends on niche markets such as organic or locally grown produce, so consumer preferences can change quickly, meaning that a traditional farmer could argue that large-scale farming produces stable crops that are less affected by shifts in consumer demand, making it more financially predictable.
Urban farming is sometimes viewed as a niche solution, like you said, that might not address the broader issues in agriculture. How would you approach this idea?
Well, urban farming is often limited in scale and production. While it may be able to grow high-value crops, it is far less suited to growing stable crops such as wheat, corn, rice, and soy. This means that urban farming is unlikely to address the broader issue of food production that is necessary for feeding large populations. Also, broader issues in agriculture such as soil erosion, water use, climate resistance could be addressed through technology innovations within the current system. Advances in precision farming, sustainable water management, and GMOs could significantly improve the sustainability of traditional farming methods.
Some believe that urban farming could shift resources and focus away from rural agriculture, where most of our food is produced. What are your thoughts on this concern?
Urban farming could provide fresh local produce to urban areas to address the problem of food deserts. However, it cannot replace the volume or variety of food produced in rural areas. The scale and the scope of food production required to meet the needs of global populations will always depend on rural, large-scale agriculture that can produce stable crops like grains, vegetables, and livestock.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about the role of urban and rural farming in our food system, or suggestions for where resources might be best allocated?
Nothing off the top of my head, but if I think of anything, I can share with you.
All right.
Sorry.
Thanks for being on our podcast.
No problem. It was good talking to you.
Let's get started. Thanks for joining us today, Blake. Could you start by introducing yourself, share a little bit about your background major, and then what kind of sparked your interest in urban farming?
Okay, so my name is Blake Price, and I recently got a bachelor's degree at ISU in agricultural studies, and I did a lot of focus on horticulture as my minor. And so how I got into agriculture and like urban farming is just kind of learning about agronomy and animal science and the needs that are out there, and the gap between consumers and producers kind of led me to find horticulture. And I also really like houseplants, so I got to learn about a lot of different things there that's not the traditional row crop agriculture.
Awesome. And you have a special interest in houseplants. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I have a business called Plant Nannies, where we provide mobile houseplant care services for residential customers, businesses, and we even do educational workshops. So all sorts of things that your plants need: repotting, vacation care, and teaching you how not to kill them, which is sometimes the most important part.
So for what you have observed, what are some of the most compelling arguments in favor of urban farming and then maybe against it?
Yeah, so let me think through my good answer here. Yeah. So when it comes to urban farming, there are a lot of pros and cons when it comes to the consumer aspect, as well as the community aspect and also the producer aspect. Some things that a lot of people don't know or realize sometimes is the environmental impact of these urban farms. Like when it comes to hydroponics, the water has to be extremely clean, and like reverse osmosis water takes 2 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of reverse osmosis water to grow certain crops indoors. And that can cause additional financial infrastructure and sometimes just resource wasting when it comes to that type of a thing. Urban farming can be really helpful. Like where I grew up in Syracuse, New York, there is an urban desert there. There's a food desert in the city, and it's kind of been caused by a lack of grocery stores, and there's in general not much knowledge on producing food, on agriculture, on healthy nutrition. And so there's not really a community desire for specifically urban farming, but it can be really helpful for the communities that it's in. One aspect, too, is when it comes to urban farming, there can be a community-focused side or there can be a for-profit side of things. So depending on who that food is grown for, it could be those niche markets that's for a high-end restaurant, but it could also be providing food to the local schools or children that don't have a dinner at home, or families or what have you. But whether that food is grown and free for them, if it's something they have to pay for, if it's a crop share program, a lot of those things can impact the accessibility to the food. And with urban farming, a lot of it being in these densely populated areas, the regulations, the resources needed to grow these things, sometimes the cost put into this food makes the product inaccessible financially for some of the people that need it the most.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it can it's seen as this trend that can be really beneficial to people, but at the same time, the price is so high that they can't actually afford the food. That's a big gap to fill. So do you think urban farming is a practical solution for all cities, or do you think there's specific contexts or locations where it's going to be a lot more beneficial?
Yeah, so I think there could be a pro and con for every location when it comes to urban farming, and also the type of farming that is. If it's a smaller community with more land available, they could do something outdoors, or something that's like in upper Minnesota, they can grow like cool season crops in a high tunnel, very low input cost setting and have food in that regard. Whereas if you're doing something like downtown Atlanta, there's going to be a lot more difficulty to get that farm even up and running. So just what the output goal is. If you're providing a need for a specific place per se, growing it for a restaurant that sells it, that's kind of a need filled. But there's a right and a wrong place and time for everything, and with a lot of it is just a high startup cost that sometimes there's not a person to foot that bill.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to urban farming, one thing that's really pushed is community involvement. It brings people together. Is there a way to incorporate community involvement into traditional farming practices if some of these negative sides of urban farming aren't going to be feasible in the long run for cities?
Yeah. So I would say right now a really common practice is what's called CSA, or crop share agreement, where local people will help out and volunteer their time to maintain the farm or the crops, and in turn get to take home a weekly harvest of those crops. And so that's a good way to keep the labor costs down, but also give the people that need the food and willing to work for it, that food for free or just with their time. But also there are things like in Des Moines here, we have a new YSS rooftop garden program where like disadvantaged youth can go and learn job skills and then take that hydroponically grown lettuce and sell it, and also for their own consumption. So in that regard, it's kind of helping a bigger cause, but there's almost got to be a bigger need to get the community involved or something for them to get out of it, because people sometimes don't have time to volunteer if they don't get something out of it.
Yeah, so kind of what you're saying, whether it's traditional or urban farming practices, we just need to create value for people to become more involved in the growing of their food and how it's done, for sure, despite the method.
Yeah. And something that I've noticed too is like outside of more of our rural places, there's not a lot of education for youth on like how to grow food, or like we see a tree outside, but equating that to you could grow like carrots to eat or something like that. And so like teaching the importance of growing your own food, because I think that's something that's been heavily lost in translation over the past few generations. There aren't people that are providing food for themselves anymore.
Yeah, good point. Amazing. So do you think urban farming now is more of a temporary trend, or do you see it being kind of a lasting element in city ecosystems as time goes on? Do you think it's going to grow, peak and decline?
Personally, I feel that it's more of a temporary trend in the regard people that are learning about agriculture or are involved in entrepreneurship are seeing that this is a hot commodity or an opportunity to fill a need in that food market. But like I addressed before, there is a lot of financial constraints and research constraints to keep that long-term financially viable to operate. So it's something that seems like a really good idea to solve a bigger problem, but it's getting everybody in the nation on board in their own community is a whole other struggle.
Yeah, that's a good point. Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add about urban farming or advice for those kind of exploring it as a career or passion?
Yeah. So urban farming, I feel like, is really a beneficial way for us to connect with our roots of growing food, and there are a lot of health benefits involved with getting your hands in the dirt and connecting with nature. So there are a lot of bigger health benefits to getting involved with your own food that you're consuming in its production, because then you can see exactly how it's grown and what's gone into it. But anyone that's like interested in getting into the industry, there's so many ways that you can get involved, and anything that you are interested in growing, you could probably grow inside or hydroponically if you really wanted to.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to Green in the Concrete Jungle, where we explore the innovative and sometimes controversial world of urban agriculture. Today, we discuss not only the potential benefits of growing food within cities, such as local produce and sustainability, but also some of the challenges. Questions remain about whether urban farming can truly scale to meet the needs of large populations and whether it's financially viable in cities with high real estate costs. Some critics argue that it is a niche solution, insufficient to tackle broader systematic issues in agriculture. Others suggest that urban farming may even divert resources and attention away from improving rural agriculture, where the bulk of our food is grown. If you found today's episode thought-provoking, please subscribe and share it with others interested in these debates. Until next time, let's keep exploring the future of farming, one perspective at a time.
A big thank you to Gracelyn and Cam and their wonderful guests today talking to us about urban agriculture. It's always wonderful to have different perspectives and learn a little along the way. So, thanks again to all of them. And with that, I'll close out the podcast today, and we'll see you all next time on the Cat Pod. To email us with any comments, questions, or concerns, please send us an email at contemporary@iastate.edu.